on Wednesday. I'm Veronica Cruz. We begin right now with some breaking news coming out of Atlanta. Police on the search for a 24-year-old gunman that they have identified as Dion Patterson. Here is a photo of him here. Officials are saying at least one person is dead and a number of others have been injured. Investigators are still searching the building for Patterson right now. Scripps News national correspondent Alexa Liaco joins us now live from Atlanta. And Alexa, you're there on the ground. You've been covering the story from the beginning. What can you tell us so far about the shooting and also the search for the suspect?
Veronica, it's still a really active scene here in Midtown. This happened in the heart of Midtown where there are businesses, apartment buildings, restaurants. People are always out here walking on these busy streets. Now it kind of feels like a ghost town except for the very heavy law enforcement presence. I want to step out and give you a look here. You can see Atlanta Police Department vehicles. There are a lot of ambulances down the street. In just the last couple of minutes, actually, though, we've seen a lot of law enforcement vehicles actually move down the street from where we are at. This is where the incident seemed to originate, here near the corner of 12th and Peachtree in Midtown Atlanta. There is a medical office here as well as apartment buildings and some restaurants. We first got report of this around 12:37 p.m. APD tweeted they were responding to an active shooter situation. What we now know, one person has been pronounced dead. 4 other people were taken to the hospital. We're told they were taken to Grady Memorial Hospital. That is the largest trauma center nearby, about 10 minutes drive from the scene in downtown Atlanta. This area is completely blocked off for about 3 blocks each way from this intersection where we're standing here. I live just about a block from here, so a little bit before noon, right around noon, I started hearing siren after siren after siren. And living in the middle of a busy city, that's, normal to hear 1 police car, 2 police car, but this is something that we have never experienced. Living here, I covered local news here in Atlanta before working for Scripps News, and I've never seen a police presence in the Midtown area like we saw today. Choppers flying overhead. We saw Georgia State Patrol. We saw marshals from the county. Fulton County is where we're at right now. So a lot of different agencies coming together to assist in the manhunt. We saw some armored vehicles, some SWAT cars that were down here originally. It does look like they've moved up the street from us now. And at this point, they're telling people still to shelter in place because Dion Patterson, that 24-year-old who is suspected of being behind this shooting today, is still on the run. They would consider him armed and dangerous at this point, so they're telling everyone here to be careful and to not go outside if you don't have to.
And Alexa, what can you tell us about the current lockdown situation? Because I do believe that they have started evacuating some folks from buildings.
Yes, a little while ago, we saw a group of people wearing blue medical scrubs evacuating and walking down the center of the street where law enforcement had blocked it off. We're not sure where they went or if any of those people were injured, but it did look like they were walking as a big group, at least a couple dozen people wearing scrubs out of that medical office. That's part of Northside Hospital. It's a medical office here in Midtown. And we did also hear that a lot of people were locked in restaurants. Our apartment building that is 1 block from here, our front staff was asking people to not leave the building. So about 3 blocks around this intersection, any businesses, restaurants, people were trapped in there and asked to stay inside as this manhunt is still continuing right now.
And is there anything more at this point, Alexa, that you can tell us about the suspect or the victims in this case?
At this point, we don't know how this all started. We do know that Dion Patterson, the suspect, police have released several different photos of the 24-year-old. At this point, we're still working to confirm any history with law enforcement or what may a possible motive be behind this attack. And at this point, we also don't know if there's any connection between Patterson and any of the victims. So really a lot of unanswered questions. We're working to get those details from police to hopefully make some sense of what happened here today. But at this point, law enforcement is just everywhere. We've seen police with long guns, bulletproof vests, helmets. So it seems like they're very geared up and prepared and really working to bring this situation to a close.
Yeah, but still an active shooter situation there in Midtown Atlanta with that shooter still on the run. Alexa Liaco reporting from Midtown Atlanta. Alexa, we appreciate it. Thank you. Getting you now to some other news at this hour. The Federal Reserve raising interest rates again by another quarter point or 25 basis points. It's now at the highest level in 16 years. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says it could pause the streak of 10 rate hikes in a row over the past 14 months. Those hikes more than doubling mortgage rates, boosting auto loan costs, and increasing the risk of a recession. And this is all in an effort to rein in inflation. Now, in the meantime, President Biden is set to meet with top congressional leaders next Tuesday, and it comes as Democrats and Republicans remain gridlocked over the debt ceiling. May 9th will be the first time party leaders have talked face-to-face on the issue. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is urging that we are running out of time. She says an agreement must be reached by June 1st in order to avoid an economic catastrophe. So the White House says President Biden is willing to negotiate with Speaker McCarthy on government spending levels, but raising the debt limit is non-negotiable. Congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed is live for us on Capitol Hill, where he's been watching this all unfold. So Nate, the House is out this week, but the Democratic majority Senate is still in session. What are Senate Democrats saying about all of this right now?
There is one pretty consistent message from Senate Democrats. If you go from everywhere from Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, down to some of the vulnerable, moderate Democratic senators who are up for re-election next year, including Senator John Tester and Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. But the message effectively is we are not happy with what the House of Representatives has passed. House Republicans just last week passed in a party-line vote a bill that would raise the debt limit by $1.5 trillion, but also make some fairly, what Democrats are terming, draconian cuts onto spending. It would return spending to 2022 levels and then also limit future spending for the next 10 years to just increases of 1% per year. Democrats have made very clear that's a non-starter. Here's Senator Schumer.
Our view about the path forward remains the same. Can't choose the Default on America Act, must avoid the horrors of default, pass a clean bipartisan bill to avert default.
And Majority Leader Schumer has already taken steps to put a bill on the floor of the U.S. Senate, which would allow Democrats to, and potentially some Republicans, to raise the debt limit for 2 years, clean, no cuts at all. Exactly what they're looking for. He has not yet made a determination, however, whether he'll actually put up that bill for a vote. He said he'll make a decision after that meeting next Tuesday with President Biden and Republican congressional leaders.
And let's talk about the other side of the aisle for a second, Nate. What is the message right now from Senate Republicans, given that they haven't proposed their own plan? Are they taking somewhat of a back seat in this negotiation?
In many ways, they are. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has even said in the past that he is looking for not only Chuck Schumer, but also President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to run point on this negotiation. He wants the two of them working together to find some sort of agreement on the debt ceiling. Just in the last couple hours, I spoke with Ohio Republican Senator J.D. Vance, who told me he had a conversation with McConnell where McConnell echoed just that. Take a listen.
Well, I actually talked to Mitch McConnell about this yesterday, and I thought he had a very interesting take on it, which he's going to go meet with the president and with Speaker McCarthy here in a few days. But his view is that he doesn't need to be there. This is really a negotiation between Speaker McCarthy and Joe Biden. This is, these are the two people who lead the House of Representatives, which of course has control over appropriations in this country, and the President of the United States, who needs to sign off on any of those bills. So I think that whatever Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy can agree on is ultimately the deal that we're going to get. It just requires the president to come to the table.
And at this point, we're all waiting for that meeting at the White House to get a better sense of whether a deal can be had. Remember, Democrats in one corner saying they want to raise the debt limit, no cuts to spending. Republicans in another saying they will not raise the debt limit if there are not cuts to spending. Veronica?
All right, congressional correspondent Nate Reed live for us on Capitol Hill this afternoon. Nate, thank you so much. Getting you now to California, where production at a standstill for some of the most popular shows in the country. The Writers Guild of America is in its second day of protest. That's after failing to come to an agreement with the largest studios in the United States. National correspondent Clayton Sandell is in Hollywood, where writers are expected to hit the picket lines again.
Writers will be back out here on the picket lines, not just here at Paramount, but at studios all over Hollywood and even in New York. As you say, this is day 2, and we are already starting to see the effects of this strike. The late night TV talk shows, they were all in reruns last night. And Saturday Night Live, they will be in reruns as well. The White House is also weighing in. They are urging both sides to come back to the table, but at this point, that is not happening. And you know, as we chatted with writers on the picket lines here yesterday, one of the things we hear over and over is that many of them simply want to be able to make a full-time living as writers. But the state of the industry right now makes that nearly impossible. And one WGA official told me that this strike is the only way to send a message to studios. And that message is, you can't do this without us. Take a listen.
We create each year over 4,000 scripted programs and hundreds of movies for these companies, which make them billions of dollars in revenues and profits. So I think they're going to start feeling that pretty immediately. They are going to see their pipeline drying up pretty quickly.
Now, writers are also getting some support from their creative colleagues, including actors. Rob Lowe was here at Paramount yesterday, and then Josh Gad, the voice of Olaf for you Frozen fans. He was at another studio across town. He's out here to support the writers. He says walking the picket lines is never easy, but in this case, it's necessary.
We are nothing without their words. We have nothing without them. And so it's imperative that we resolve this in a way that benefits the brilliance that comes out of each of these people here today on the page. Because without the page, we have nothing. We have no instruction manual for art.
So right now, both sides, the studios and the writers, seem to be very far apart on some key issues, although the studios say they would like to come back to the table to continue talking. The last writers' strike in 2007 lasted more than 3 months, and at this point, both sides seem to be settling in for a very long standoff. Clayton Sandell, Scripps News, Hollywood.
So the impact of the strike extends beyond Hollywood. WGA members across the country right now showing signs of solidarity with fellow writers. And one of them is Zaid Dorn. He's a writer and professor at the Industry of Northwestern University. Zaid, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
So Zaid, we know that the industry has changed a lot throughout the years, and it's changed because of the advent of technology, you know, in particular streaming technology. I know that you've been expressing that you want writing to be a sustainable career. So what is it about writing? Why is it not sustainable right now?
Well, as you say, a lot of things have changed in the last 6 years since we last renegotiated our contract with the studios. And the main thing is the rise of streaming. One thing that's meant is that series orders on television that used to be maybe 20 weeks for a writer's room, you could make a living writing for 20 weeks and writing the season of a show. Now they're creating mini rooms where you might have 4, 6, 8 weeks of employment. And so what's really happened is the studios have turned writing into a kind of a gig economy job. Instead of a sustainable career, it's something that you have to scramble for each job and hope to put enough together over the course of a year that you might be able to pay your rent and support your family.
All right, so you're saying that writing has become like a gig economy job. What needs to change exactly for writers then? Because I know they're out there, they're picketing, but what are they fighting for? And do you have confidence that their demands are going to be met?
I do have confidence because nothing in the industry can happen without the work that writers do. And, you know, really what writers are asking for is a deal that allows us to share in some small way in the success of the content we create. Scripted television and film obviously creates billions of dollars in value for the studios and for production companies. And what we're asking for is literally less than 2% of the profits that those companies make off of our work alone. So, you know, without that, writers can't progress in the industry. They can't learn the tools that they need to do the job. And so what we're asking is not just good for us as writers, it's good for audiences, and it's ultimately good for the studios to be able to make writing a sustainable career and be able to kind of fill the pipeline in the future with the talented writers who can make the work that people want to see.
So better pay, obviously, is one part of this negotiation. I know that many writers are saying that we deserve a bigger piece of the pie, if you will. And we've heard some writers mention also that they would like the union to protect their jobs, mostly from artificial intelligence. Zaid, what kind of a threat do you think that artificial intelligence poses to the industry right now?
I mean, I think it's hard to say. You know, we're all looking towards the future, and I think obviously in the long term, artificial intelligence poses a threat to almost every industry. I don't think anybody thinks if you've played with, ChatGPT or any of those things, it's not going to replace good writing anytime soon. It's still pretty clumsy. It definitely doesn't have the originality or the humanity that good writing requires. But that being said, we don't want to see a world where producers can kind of use ChatGPT or some kind of artificial intelligence to create sort of the template for scripts and then hire writers for a couple days to come and punch them up and make them good, rather than actually having writers there for the whole process and kind of, supporting them in the original work that they do. Again, it's about making writing a job that can work over time and not just a job that is, created piecemeal and treated as though it's a gig that is not actually a long-term career.
But do you think that something like ChatGPT or other artificial intelligence software could eliminate some jobs in the industry?
Long-term, absolutely, it could eliminate jobs. I mean, I think like every technology, it's a tool. It's not going to be able to work by itself. You're always going to need writers and creative people to use that tool to make interesting and original work. But we're not going to stand around and wait for that moment. We're going to say now, the studios need to come to us with some vision of how AI is going to be used as a tool and a way that writers are still protected and that it's not just coming along to replace the hours that we put in and to minimize the contribution that writers are making. Again, ChatGPT, AI is not going to replace writers, not for a long, long, long time. Writers are always going to be needed, but we don't want to see that tool being used to minimize or eliminate some of the compensation that writers deserve. ChatGPT is scouring the web for original copyrighted content by other writers and then creating new content based on that. But the studios have to pay for original work that writers are doing, and they have to commit to doing that now.
So the last strike lasted about 100 days or 3 months, which essentially means no work, no pay for a lot of writers out there. Do you think that this is the only way to send a message? How quickly do you think this is going to be resolved?
I hope that it's going to be resolved quickly. One thing is when we voted as a guild nationwide on the strike authorization vote, 98% of writers voted yes on this strike. And I think that's unprecedented. It's maybe the largest yes vote we've ever had for a strike. And that just shows you how united writers are and how much we all agree that this is an existential moment, that we are committed to standing in solidarity to get the studios to listen to what we're asking for. I don't think it'll take that long because I think these are hugely profitable industries, and I think they rely on the work we do. They can't make the content that they need to make without writers. And so eventually I think they'll come back to the table. Like you said, the last strike lasted about 100 days. I'm very hopeful that this will not last that long.
All right, Zaid Dorn is a writer and professor at Northwestern University. Zaid, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. We appreciate it. Well, a new poll shows Americans largely support recent bans on transgender rights. Coming up next, we're in Montana, where this battle reaches a fever pitch as a transgender lawmaker is fighting to keep transgender care alive for kids. Plus, the latest from Atlanta, where the shelter in place has now been lifted after a deadly shooting this afternoon. You're watching Scripps News Live.
You're looking pretty good, Mr. Johnson. But we need to take some x-rays today.
Okay.
Yes, x-rays are expensive, but the front desk said you recently enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits that now cover today's x-rays and cleaning costs.
Wow, okay.
Well, Medicare Parts A and B do not cover your routine dental coverage like cleanings, fillings, or x-rays. Yes, you have a Medicare Part C plan, commonly called Medicare Advantage. Medicare Part C plans cover everything in Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits like dental, vision, and hearing.
Wow. That's great that my plan includes dental coverage that helps pay for these costs.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. A Medicare Part C plan could include dental coverage that pays for routine dental exams and teeth cleanings, dental x-rays, fillings, tooth extractions, root canals, dentures, implants, and crowns.
If you're losing coverage, moving, or new to Medicare, call to speak with a licensed insurance agent. You don't get a plan with these benefits automatically, so it's always good to call to see if there's a plan with extra benefits available in your zip code. If you don't have a Medicare Part C plan, call now because there may be plans available with additional benefits that are simply not covered under Medicare Parts A and B, like routine dental coverage. In fact, 24 million Medicare beneficiaries do not have any dental coverage. Here's the good news. If you're on Medicare, you can call even if you called last year. We will check to see if there's a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Remember, you don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-614-5203. 800-614-5203.
Every day, more dog people and more vets are deciding it's time for a fresh approach to pet food. They're quitting the kibble and kicking the cans and feeding their dogs dog food that's actually, well, food. Developed with vets, made from real meat and veggies, portioned for your dog, and delivered right to your door. It's smarter, healthier pet food.
Local, national, and worldwide headlines, breaking down the day's biggest stories with live reporting from around the globe.
I'm Del Walters, and this is your Evening Debrief.
Live tonight, starting at 6/5 Central, only on Scripps News. The why is where curiosity is intentional. Because when you ask the why behind the news, the world opens up before your eyes. The Why, Saturday nights at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Right now, at least 16 states have already enacted some form of restriction on transgender rights, primarily targeting gender-affirming care for minors. Responses from an original Scripps News YouGov poll earlier today show how Americans feel about these new laws. Maritza Giorgio reports now from Montana, where this has been a hot-button issue.
A wave of new laws in at least 16 states so far restricting or banning gender-affirming care for transgender minors have touched off a political firestorm.
These procedures, these treatments do much more harm than good.
This is a dangerous attack on the rights of parents to make the best health care decisions for their own kids.
But while the White House calls the new laws dangerous, there are new indications that more Americans than not support legal restrictions on medical care aimed at helping minors change gender. A new Scripps News YouGov poll finds 44% of Americans support laws that restrict or ban transgender care for minors, even with parental consent, while just 34% are opposed to laws that put limits on transgender care. Breaking the poll down along party lines, 75% of Republicans support the restrictions, while 60% of Democrats oppose them. When you look at independents, a growing force in American politics, 45% support these new restrictions, while just 29% oppose them. Another flashpoint, women's sports. Congress is now considering a federal ban on athletes classified male at birth from competing in women's sports. Most Americans, 54%, would support legislation that bars transgender athletes from female sports, according to our Scripps News YouGov poll. Again, a break along party lines, with 83% of Republicans supporting that potential ban, 58% of independents agreeing. But public opinion more evenly divided for Democrats, 34% in support, 41% opposed. The debate over transgender rights has intensified since the start of the year, especially in Montana, where less than a week ago, Republican Governor Greg Gianforte signed into law new restrictions on care for minors. It came after the first transgender woman elected to the state legislature was blocked from accessing the House floor, punishment for her criticism of Republicans and for appearing to support a protest inside the chamber.
The Montana lawmakers at the center of this firestorm have agreed to one-on-one sit-down interviews with Scripps News. Later today, I'll be talking with Representative Zoe Zephyr, and tomorrow with Speaker of the House Matt Regier. We'll bring you those interviews and more from that poll tomorrow night in a special right here on Scripps News at 9:30 Eastern. Reporting in Missoula, Montana, Maritza Giorgio, Scripps News.
With Title 42 expiring a week from tomorrow, the U.S. and Mexico have agreed to new policies created to reduce illegal border crossings. Under the plan, Mexico will accept as many as 30,000 people from Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, and Nicaragua every month who are denied entry at the border. Up to 100,000 people from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador will be able to live and work in Mexico as long as they have family in the United States. Title 42 allowed them to be turned away due to policies related to the COVID pandemic. So what do things look like at the border right now? And does the Biden administration have a plan for the current surge of migrants? Our Addie Guajardo is going to take a closer look at the issue. You can find her full report coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern here on Scripps News Live. Straight ahead, we've been following the breaking news for you out of Atlanta, and we're going to have the very latest from the scene of today's deadly shooting after a quick break.
Here's TV shark Robert Herjavec for CarShield.
I love cars, and I also love great deals. That's why I'm such a fan of CarShield. They have an amazing deal that helps protect you from the sky-high cost of big auto repairs.
The check engine light on your vehicle can come on at any time. If your car is out of warranty, an engine replacement can cost over $5,000. A new transmission, over $4,000. Even a new air conditioner can run over $1,500.
If you suddenly had to pay those costs, it could really hurt your bottom line.
CarShield administrators have paid for my claims over $5,000. Now, who does that? CarShield, you're the best. A plan that works.
When your car or truck breaks down, you simply take it to the certified repair shop or dealer of your choice. CarShield administrators take care of the rest.
And CarShield gives you VIP treatment.
Plans through CarShield include 24-hour roadside assistance, courtesy towing, and rental car options when your vehicle is being repaired.
I did my due diligence. CarShield is a deal that is just too good to pass up. In fact, CarShield is America's #1 auto protection company.
CarShield administrators have paid out over $1 billion in claims and have protected millions of vehicles. Call now for a free quote.
It's only a matter of time until your vehicle is going to need a repair. Save big with CarShield.
Call now for an instant free quote. CarShield offers month-to-month plans for every budget. There are no long-term contracts. CarShield has coverage for vehicles with 5,000 to 150,000 miles. CarShield experts are standing by now. The sooner you call, the sooner you can drive with peace of mind.
Coverage through CarShield is a deal that is just too good to pass up. If you want to save a lot of money on future auto repair bills, I recommend you call CarShield now.
Call 1-800-680-9870 or go to carshield.com. That's 1-800-680-9870. Call now.
Attention firefighters, first responders, military base personnel, and airport workers, listen closely to this important legal announcement. Have you been exposed to chemical-based firefighting foam? If so, you may be entitled to a substantial cash award without going to court. For decades, aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, has been used to extinguish liquid fuel fires. A scientific study has now shown that the chemicals used to make AFFF are highly toxic to humans and can cause a significant risk of developing several types of cancer, including kidney, pancreatic, thyroid, prostate, bladder, testicular, liver, or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you or a loved one are a firefighter, first responder, airport worker, or member of the military that has used firefighting foam and has been diagnosed with cancer, please call the Negligence Network to file your claim today. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call the Negligence Network to see if you're eligible for substantial compensation. Call 1-800-300-4858. That's 1-800-300-4858.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. It's nearly 30 minutes after the hour. Want to bring you up to speed right now on our breaking news we've been following. Atlanta police still searching for a gunman identified as 24-year-old Dion Patterson. Officials say at least one person is dead, a number of others injured. Now, a shelter-in-place order for Midtown has now been lifted, as we understand it. Scripps News national correspondent Alexa Liaco has been live on the ground for us. And Alexa, you've been covering this story from the very beginning. Bring us up to speed right now on the investigation and this lockdown that's been in place. Has the area been given the all clear?
The shelter in place has been lifted, but it does not seem any less tense here. They're setting up for a press conference with the chief of police and the mayor in just moments from now. So I'll walk us over to the press conference if that starts in the next couple of minutes while we're here live. This area was seemingly calming down. Just about 15 minutes ago, we were standing across the street from here. About 5 or 6 officers with their long guns, helmets, and bulletproof vests on came running towards us, and we all took pause. They ran and got in their police vehicles and drove down the street here. And then just 30 seconds after that, a special forces armored vehicle came through the street, loaded up with law enforcement officers as well. So it does not seem like things are over at this scene. Even though the shelter in place has been lifted, authorities are still asking people to take extreme caution and avoid the area if they can. Now you can see police are still blocking off this street. This is in the heart of Midtown, a very busy area with apartment buildings, medical offices, restaurants. People walk through here all the time, have lunch, do business here. It is now a ghost town except for this heavy law enforcement presence. This is one of the biggest law enforcement responses I've ever seen. I worked local news in Atlanta for a couple of years before joining Scripps News. Never seen anything like this in the heart of Midtown. But we are still working to figure out where the gunman is right now. Police have not confirmed they have located 24-year-old Dion Patterson. They say this all started around 12:30 today. That's when APD first tweeted out that they were dealing with an active shooter situation. We now know that 1 person has been killed, 4 people injured in this shooting. We have not confirmed yet where the shooting took place, but we do know that police say the gunman is considered armed and dangerous at this point, and the scene is still active and the situation still unfolding at this moment.
And Alexa, what can you tell us at this point about the victims in this case?
At this point, we know that the victims were taken to Grady Memorial Hospital. That is the biggest trauma center in downtown Atlanta. That's about a 10-minute drive from the scene here in Midtown. And it is the place where all trauma victims are taken in the metro Atlanta area when situations like this happen. Other than that, though, we really don't know too much. We don't know if the shooter knew any of the victims, if there was any relation or anything in terms of why this took place, a motive behind this shooting. So still so many questions right now, but we do know that police have released some photos of that suspect, 24-year-old Dion Patterson, and APD did just tweet out that they're offering a $10,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest of this person.
All right, so you're saying a $10,000 reward is now being offered for any information on 24-year-old Dion Patterson. Alexa, I also wanted to ask you about what's happening there, where you're at, because we know now that the all clear has been given. You're saying that they have removed essentially this lockdown that has been in place. So what are you seeing? Are people out on the street? Is there traffic passing by? What's happening right now?
We've started to see some cars try and come through here, but the streets are still closed off. The shelter in place is lifted, but it's still pretty empty in this very busy Midtown sector where there are a lot of businesses and restaurants. Usually a lot of people are walking through here. There's a big restaurant right behind us. Nobody's out, but some cars have tried to come through here, but this area is still blocked off for at least 3 blocks down this way and a block this way. So the shelter in place may be lifted, but it still definitely feels a little tense here on the scene.
All right, Alexa Liaco reporting from Midtown Atlanta. The very latest on that. Alexa, will be circling back with you. We know that press conference is set to begin shortly, and we'll check back with you. Thank you. I want to get you now overseas. This morning, Russia accusing Ukraine of sending 2 drones overnight to attack the Kremlin. Moscow is calling it a terrorist act. Ukraine denying all allegations. Shelby Wilder is in Ukraine for us and has the very latest.
Moscow claimed that Ukraine is responsible for an assassination attempt on Russian President Vladimir Putin today. Russia said that in the early hours of this morning, 2 drones were launched at the Kremlin. Russia's defenses did shoot down those drones. They said that Russian President Vladimir Putin was not in the Kremlin at the time, but Russia has called this a terrorist attack and said that it justifies retaliation for this incident. Now, Ukraine has vehemently denied any involvement in this drone strike. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine does not, quote, attack Putin or Moscow, end quote. And a spokesperson for the Ukrainian president said that this was a trick by Moscow. They said that this could be Russia trying to carry out a false flag operation so that Russia could be justifying a widespread attack on Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in Finland today meeting with the Finnish president and also Nordic counterparts. Separately, other news we have been following. Russia launched a new wave of attacks on Ukraine today. This began in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Russia launched 26 Iranian-made Shahed drones. Ukraine's Air Force said they destroyed 21 of those Shaheds, but the remaining drones did hit central and eastern Ukraine, which set fire to a Ukrainian oil depot and also damaged infrastructure such as a state administrative building. This was the third attempt by Russia to attack Kyiv, the nation's capital. That was a failed attempt, but that was the third within 6 days. And we have been under frequent air raid sirens here. Just today alone, 3 different air raid sirens have been activated in Kyiv for numerous hours, telling residents to seek shelter. And separately today, Russia also attacked the city of Kherson in the southeast of Ukraine, carrying out at least 4 different shelling attacks on that city. We know that 16 civilians have been killed and 22 have been wounded. One location that was hit was a grocery store, which has opened investigations for war crimes. I'm Shelby Wilder for Scripps News in Kyiv, Ukraine.
More aid is on the way to help Ukraine fight those Russian private soldiers. The Biden administration expected to send about $300 million in additional military support. The package will include rockets, ammunition, and anti-tank rifles. Officials are saying the weapons aim to help Ukraine transition into winter. It is the 37th package coming from Pentagon stockpiles. So families of Americans being held abroad gathered in front of the White House today. The group Bring Our Families Home organized this rally to spotlight the ongoing detainment of dozens of Americans in foreign countries right now. Scripps News congressional correspondent Stephanie Liebergen was there for us.
A coalition of families gathered outside the White House this morning, all for one reason: to try to ensure that Americans being held abroad or wrongfully detained are brought home. And they really have just 2 simple requests. These families want to meet with President Biden, but they also want to know that the Biden administration is doing absolutely everything that it can to bring all of these Americans back home. The families out here this morning are really here to provide support for each other even after a loved one successfully returns home. Trevor Reed and his parents were out here today, and they say they're dedicated to supporting other families who are going through the trauma of a wrongful detainment.
And we're just here to support all the families. We can't walk away from this. We've been where they're at, and we want all of their families to experience what we've experienced in them, their loved one coming home.
There's no comprehensive list of Americans that are being held abroad, and they're being held in a variety of countries, including Venezuela, China, Iran, and Syria. And some of them get an official governmental designation of being wrongfully detained. But not all of the families out here have that designation. I spoke to one mother, Kay Denman. She said it's the 3rd anniversary of her son's detainment in Venezuela. Luke Denman and Aaron Berry are former Green Berets currently being held in Venezuela. And Luke's mom said even though those 2 are not deemed wrongfully detained, she still feels supported by the Biden administration and the special presidential envoy for hostage affairs, Roger Carstens.
But we are not officially under SPIHA, and that's where we have a problem, is we feel like they are wrongfully detained, and we should be able to get those services from SPIHA and Roger. But Roger keeps an eye on them because he's been down to Venezuela a few times, and he does visit them just to make sure the well-being of the boys are good.
There are lots of emotions out here today, but really one main message: trying to get Americans being held overseas back home with their family and their loved ones. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Washington.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, a state law banning abortion clinics is now on hold in Utah. What could be next for that state and other abortion laws nationwide as legal challenges make their way through the courts? That's next.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average, and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
If you're living with diabetes, this sound may save your life. A continuous glucose monitor provides glucose readings and alerts you in real time to potential lows and harmful spikes without painful finger sticks. It's easy, convenient, and proven to lower your A1C. If you administer insulin, you may qualify for a continuous glucose monitor at no cost to you. Call now. It could save your life. Just call 800-233-6176. This new GCM technology immediately eliminates your pain and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. That means no more guessing. It's easy to see your glucose number any time of the day. Call now and get free shipping. Plus, we'll bill your insurance company for you. Satisfaction guaranteed. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control of your diabetes now. Just call 800-233-6176. That's 800-233-6176.
At Omaha Steaks, we do burgers differently. We take a premium aged steak like this and turn it into a pure ground burger like this. So this is actually a ribeye. This is a New York strip, top sirloin, beef brisket, and this is a filet mignon. For a limited time, our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99, plus free shipping. Get it today at omahasteaks.com/TV. This is Burger Perfection, guaranteed.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. Get what you're worth at Worthy.com.
This is The Upside,
where we shine a light on the brighter side of news.
With authority.
This is my purpose. Anybody can do it.
These are the stories of good people doing great things.
Weekday mornings at 5:30, 4:30 Central on Scripps News.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. Moments ago, Atlanta native and Georgia Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock addressed the active shooting situation in Midtown Atlanta on the Senate floor. 24-year-old Dion Patterson still on the run right now. One person is dead. Multiple injuries have been reported. Senator Warnock has been urging lawmakers to take action to curb gun violence across the nation.
We behave as if this is normal. It is not normal. It is not right for us to live in a nation where nobody is safe no matter where they are. We're not safe in our schools. We're not safe in our workplaces. We're not safe at the grocery store. We're not safe at movie theaters. We're not safe at spas. We're not safe in our houses of worship. There is no sanctuary in the sanctuary.
Getting you now to Midtown Atlanta, where we're learning that press conference is now starting. The mayor of Atlanta is now speaking with reporters. Let's go ahead and take a listen right here.
All right, good afternoon. We are here, as you know, at the scene of a deadly situation. I'm thankful for Atlanta Police Department and other law enforcement agencies for their engagement on this situation. I've spoken to the governor, to our congressional delegation of senators and congresspeople, as well as my office has been in touch with the White House. And as soon as possible, I'll be in touch with the families of the victims that are here. As you know, 1 is deceased and 4 are fighting for their lives at Grady Hospital, and we're prayerful that they pull through. And as soon as possible, I will reach out to them and to their families. All are women. And I am also making sure that you know that we are dealing with someone that is armed and dangerous. This is a deadly situation. This individual has just indeed conducted an act that we want to make sure that you know that if you see him, do not approach, but you are to call 911. We are also making sure that you know that law enforcement agencies across this region are working together. Law enforcement agencies of Fulton County, of the City of Atlanta, of Cobb County, of our college campuses, our Atlanta Public Schools PD, a number of agencies are working in a concerted effort to work and to bring this suspect in and to make sure that we are all safe in the process. And so I ask that again, if you see the individual that you have seen his face, you've seen his photo and his clothing, please do not approach, but do call 911. So now I am very confident that the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department and the other local agencies are well trained to make sure that we bring this individual to justice for situations just like this. So now I'll turn it over to Chief Shearbaum to give you all the specific details about this incident and to let you know our pathway forward. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. First of all, the Atlanta Police Department wants to extend its condolences for all members of the Atlanta Police Department, those that lost their lives today, and we are working digitally to bring this individual into custody. We are looking for Deon Patterson, age 24 years of age, which we have given you his photo, and this is a very active search. We are following up on credible leads that are currently active in Cobb County, as well as some that are right here in the city. We have been joined by multiple jurisdictions. We have the Sheriff of Fulton County that is here right now. That's been working alongside our department, Georgia Tech PD, Georgia State University PD, MARTA PD, the Georgia State Patrol, the GBI, the FBI, the Secret Service, as well as the Atlanta Public Schools Police are all actively involved searching as we speak for Mr. Patterson. And here's what we know. We'll be able to give you some information, and others will be delivered as this investigation continues. At 12:08 this afternoon, we were called just down the street to 1110 West P Street. This is a medical facility, the Northside Hospital, that is at that location. This shooting did occur inside the waiting room of that medical facility, where 5 individuals were shot. Unfortunately, a 39-year-old female has lost her life, and of those that are injured is a 71-year-old female, a 56-year-old female, a 39-year-old female, and then a 25-year-old female. We do know that Mr. Patterson, our suspect, left the building. We believe he carjacked a vehicle a short distance away and was able to flee the scene as the law enforcement agencies were descending on this area. And we believe he has left the area. He may not still be in that vehicle. So I don't want everyone to be focused on the vehicle, which has been recovered. So the photograph that has been distributed, for your viewers, your listeners, to be very mindful of that photograph. If you see this individual who may or may not still be in the same hoodie, please call 911 right away or use Crime Stoppers to be able to provide an anonymous tip to where he may be. As the mayor said, we have a multi-jurisdictional effort underway to bring this individual to justice and ensure that we remove him from the street. Everyone consider him still armed and presenting a danger to whatever community he may find himself in at this time.
Chief, how did this start? I mean, what preceded the shot?
You know, we're just hours into this investigation. So investigators are behind us in the buildings, talking to witnesses, processing the scene as we speak. The clarity that I think that we would want to know as a city and as a society, we just don't have at this particular moment, but we'll provide it as soon as we have it.
Were the victims patients? Were they employees of Northside Hospital?
That is still being worked through. We weren't in a position this time to say whether they're patients or whether they're employees or both.
Did the suspect have any connection to the shooter's mother?
Howie Bill is saying here to the chief of police there in Atlanta. What we know right now is that 5 women were shot in this incident. One of them died. She was 39 years old. The other 4 range in age from their 20s to their 70s, and they have been taken to Grady Hospital, a local area hospital, with injuries. Again, the suspect in this case, 24-year-old Deon Patterson, remains at large. Police are saying, again, stay clear of the area. They do believe the suspect is armed and dangerous. We're going to continue to follow this breaking news out of Atlanta. In the meantime, you want to stay with Scripps News Live for the very latest. We'll be right back.
This is an important message for anyone and everyone on or eligible for Medicare. If Medicare is important to you, then you need to hear this message because Medicare benefits matter to millions of Americans. Did you know Medicare has different parts, including Medicare Part A and Part B, often called Original Medicare? And then there's Medicare Part C, representing Medicare Advantage plans, and Part D for prescription drug coverage. Call 800-912-2786 now for your free Medicare coverage checkup. We can look up your plan and see if you're missing out on a plan with extra benefits or if your income qualifies you to reduce costs on your prescription medications. Did you know there are different enrollment periods like the Medicare annual enrollment period when beneficiaries can enroll in or change coverage? But there are also certain conditions or qualifications that may allow you to qualify for a special enrollment period any time of the year. So call the number on your screen now for your free Medicare coverage checkup. This is a free service that you can call at absolutely no cost to you.
I'm on Medicare. I called to see if my income qualified for lower prescription medication costs. The friendly agent was very knowledgeable, and I found out I qualified for a special enrollment period, so I'm so glad I called.
We can look up your plan and see if you are missing out on a plan with extra benefits. We can also check to see if your income qualifies you to reduce the cost of your prescription medications. And we can even tell you if you qualify for a special enrollment period. It's your free Medicare coverage checkup at absolutely no cost to you. Just call 800-912-2786 and you can speak with a licensed agent who can check up on your plan and answer your questions. The Medicare Benefits and Questions line is open and anyone on or eligible for Medicare can call. The call and Medicare coverage checkup is free with no obligation. Call now. We love talking to people with Medicare, and the call is free. Just call 800-912-2786. 800-912-2786.
This is an important legal announcement for all firefighters, first responders, airport workers, members of the military, and their families. Firefighter occupational cancer is the leading cause of deaths in the fire service. Cancer accounted for more than 74% of deaths in 2022. You may have been exposed to chemical-based firefighting foam known to cause cancer. If you or a loved one were exposed, you may be entitled to significant cash compensation. Call the number on your screen now for your free case consultation. Aqueous Film Forming Foam, or AFF, has been used to extinguish fires for years. Studies now show there are highly toxic chemicals used to make this foam. These chemicals can cause many types of cancer and illnesses. Call now to see if you're eligible for the cash compensation you deserve without having to go to court. The call and consultation are absolutely free. The time to file your claim is limited, so don't wait and call now. Just call 800-346-7670 now. That's 800-346-7670.
5 rehabilitated sea turtles now swimming in the ocean again. They were released back into the water off the coast of St. Augustine, Florida. The Florida Aquarium got the Kemp's Ridley turtles back to good health after they were stranded. Kemp's Ridley are the smallest species of sea turtle. An adult can weigh between 70 to 100 pounds. Very cool. All right, now to Michigan, where social media, of course, has inspired plenty of people to change their career paths. But one man made his new path happen with just a paperclip. Michael Martin from Scripps News Grand Rapids shows us how.
This all started as an interesting idea for a TikTok video. Joel Hagan traded a paperclip that looked just like this for one thing and then another, starting small and ending up with an actual ice cream truck. Well, after a year of operating that one, he's taken his profits and bought another ice cream truck, seeing how far he can take Paperclip's ice cream.
I tell people, you know, I got this ice cream truck for free, kind of.
As the pandemic was setting in, Joel Hagan was at the drawing board, making TikTok videos and looking for his next opportunity.
I was working as an axe throwing coach at an axe throwing warehouse. I was a coach and sales rep, and then I got laid off because they deemed axe throwing non-essential.
He decided to take on the unusual task of acquiring an ice cream truck. not by purchasing said truck, but by trading a paperclip.
So for my first trade, I traded this normal-sized paperclip for an oversized brass antique safety pin.
A paperclip for a big brass pin, and then that pin for a video game and so forth.
I was able to trade this for a Nintendo Switch version of Super Smash Bros., which has a value of about $60.
Until he had a working ice cream truck, and at that point, a new business venture.
We're called Paperclips Ice Cream because I started with a paperclip and I traded up to an ice cream truck, and people like double take and they say, "What? Can you explain that?" And I love telling the story because it adds to the brand, it adds to the satisfaction.
Fox 17 spoke to him back in September 2021 as he was getting things off the ground.
First season went really well. A small truck, I'm a big guy, but it worked really well.
The truck was perhaps a bit more cramped than he wanted it.
I can't stand up in the little truck, which is kind of unfortunate, but there's still plenty of room for me to sit up in the truck, but when I'm serving out the window, I have to hunch over.
But now he has expanded his ice cream operations.
I found this truck on Facebook Marketplace, and I had to have it.
It was perfect, and with only about 50,000 miles on it.
I wanted to be able to do bigger and better events. So now I'm looking like I can do, Amazon or Amway, the big things. And there's no way I'll run out.
Now with 2 trucks, it's still just Joel and his wife making things happen. But Paperclips Ice Cream is showing no signs of melting.
It took a lot of work, a lot of intentionality, a lot of stick-to-itiveness. But as far as monetary value, there's, even in both of these trucks, really nothing out of pocket.
Looking ahead to another season of serving up an all-around delicious experience.
So it's more than just buying ice cream out of a truck. It's helping support the story and being a part of the fun.
That was Michael Martin there from Scripps News Grand Rapids reporting for us. And finally today, one for all you plant parents out there. If you need a moment of calm, you want to head to your garden, and that's because today is National Garden Meditation Day, and it encourages everyone to take a time out, relax, and just get in touch with nature. The so-called garden lady, C.L. Fornari, founded Garden Meditation Day, and she says that dealing with plants helps us connect with our inner selves. There you go. And before we let you go, we're going to continue to follow breaking news out of Atlanta after a deadly shooting. Police still looking for the suspect, 24-year-old Dion Patterson. There's an image right there. We know right now that 1 woman was killed, 4 others injured. Our Dell Walters picks up our coverage for us next.